Good afternoon, everyone. It's Shamila Ramjawan coming to you from the Red Corner Chat. This afternoon, we have Deshini Pillay, who is an educator. She is the deputy principal in a school in KZN. I welcome you, Deshini.
Good afternoon, Shamila. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be on this platform this afternoon.
I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation going forward as an educator. I haven't had any educators on the platform as yet. And I think, in terms of COVID-19, where we are, how we're actually managing this whole classroom situation, this chat is going to be very valuable for everyone out there. So just getting right into it, Deshini, can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yes, Shamila, sure. I'm an educator, as you mentioned, but I'm also currently an acting deputy principal at a school known as Park Primary, which is situated in Verulam, in a very impoverished area in KZN. I'm a mother to a 13-year-old son who's in grade 8 currently, and my husband is a project manager for DFA, which is dark fiber optic, and he has just completed his LLB degree.
Wow. So I see
that in a nutshell.
The brains runs in the family. I can see the inspiration that you are giving out to your 13-year-old son. Deshini, tell me a little bit about your studies, because I do know that you are studying your PhD at the moment. Do you maybe want to take me through that?
Yes, Shamila, I am currently on the verge of completing my PhD, which is a very interesting topic and something that's close to my heart. It's a perspective of educators on leadership and conflict handling situations in the Phoenix area. And as a unionist, I'm able to draw from the field in terms of educators and knowing that many schools have conflict. So therefore, I decided to go on the route of exploring the study. And I'm crossing my fingers and waiting for that final result to come out, which I'm not sure when.
I'm sure you're going to do very well. I'm looking forward to reading your thesis. So good luck and well done on the completion. Deshini, tell me a little bit about your awards. I know you have multiple awards. You've been recognized for your contribution in education, in community development. So do you want to maybe take me through that?
Yes, Shamila, but I have to say from the outside, you've always been my inspiration. I've always marveled and always was overwhelmed in terms of how you as a woman who have empowered other women. So you are my inspiration. And yes, being nominated for the Visionary Award and the Wow Women and I Am Woman, and also currently the Business in Leadership Awards, I'm a finalist, Woman of Stature. I was also a finalist in 2020 and Fabulous Women. So like I said, as a woman, we look up to women like you in society, and therefore, just take that baby steps. But I'm not sure, you are just too fabulous and too awesome. So hats out to you, Shamila, and thanks for being that inspiration.
Wow, thank you for that. Thank you. I really appreciate those kind words, Deshini. I know you're also doing a lot, and there's a lot of women doing great things out there, and we as women, we need to support each other in our dreams and our passion and our purpose. So thank you so much for that. I truly appreciate that. Well done on everything that you've achieved so far. There's so much more that's coming your way. I can see it because I know you're a go-getter, and I know that you are doing awesome work out there. Just take me into COVID-19. So there's a whole lot of challenges that's affecting schools right now. How did it impact your school in particular?
Oh, Shamila, with COVID-19, every one of us being educators and learners, it was really very scary going back into school. And the challenges that we are experiencing, I'm talking to my school in particular, Park Primary, is that you have a lot of educators that are on co-mobility leave. And when I say co-mobility leave, these are educators that have underlying conditions, and we're given permission or concession by the Department of Education not to return. due to the fact that this pandemic would affect their health. So we are challenged in terms of staffing. We are working with the skeleton staff, and having only the grade 7s currently, we must note that our educators in the foundation phase will have to go in and take on this extra loads, as well as the rest of the educators. So everyone currently that's on the school plant would have to teach. Then we have challenges in terms of our cleaning staff. We don't have enough of cleaners, and then you have classrooms to deep sanitize and clean on a regular basis, on a daily basis. So cleaners, we have a problem with that. And then you're looking at your assessments in terms of your revised ATPs, which are annual teaching plans, have been trimmed and cut down. So this impacts on the teaching load and what can I say, cramping the learner to take on as much as possible. And remember, we are now in August, and come November, they write that final exam. So we're not doing justice in terms of the curriculum as such. So these are just some of the challenges. And also remember, schools haven't been getting school fees. And how is the school supposed to be running? Because they have electricity, the water bill, you have cleaning, you have SGB staff to pay. So this has impacted not only Trinidad Spark Primary, but every other school in KZN.
The standard operating procedures, just tell me a little bit about that, because every school, every organization has that. How has that helped your school?
Okay, the standard operating procedure was a manual, was a document that was workshopped with the circuit managers in each province. And this was derived by the Department of Education. So what the circuit managers did was they called the principals in for a workshop. And if you look at the standard operating procedure, it was supposed to have been a training that was supposed to be taken over a week, but it was done so quickly over a 1 to 2 hour. Thereafter, the principals had to come back to school and to train the staff over a short while. So now the standard operating procedures basically are the COVID-19 regulations and the protocols that every educator needs to adhere to before and after, in terms of entering and leaving the school, in terms of also, remember, your SGB need to be appraised on the standard operating, your school governing body, your learners, your cleaners. So this has also helped in a way whereby educators know what the protocols are. So before you enter someone at the school gate, the guard needs to know what is expected of him or her, as well as the educators and as well as the screeners need to know before the learners enter and before the educators enter. So this has helped us to curb the virus to a basic minimum, because you remember, you also had schools that had outbreaks, because if they were not implementing the standard operating procedures, this is where you had outbreaks. So having read the document, having appraised your staff and workshopping them on a continuous basis, this has helped many schools.
So do you think the procedures are being followed throughout the country? What's your view on that?
No, because if they were following the procedures, you wouldn't have had outbreaks. Remember, when a learner enters the gate, the screener is appraised as to what is required of him or her. Before a teacher enters the school gates, the screener knows what is expected. And in turn, also the learners, before they enter, they are also appraised as to what is expected of him or her. If a learner comes to the school gate with a cough, with a sneeze, or with a headache, then there are procedures in place for that learner to go back home before he even enters the gate. So parents were appraised via circular, via WhatsApp messages. There were many ways of communicating to parents as well.
That is actually very sad, because I think government has done quite a bit in making sure that each school gets the appropriate PPE. And I think, they have the tools, they have everything. All they have to do is just follow simple procedures and make sure that the learners are tested and carry on. And, we can't afford to have these outbreaks. So in terms of government lockdown measures, we've been through the phases of lockdown, the phasing in of learners into the schools. What's your take on that? And how do you think it was right the way it was done, or should it be done differently? Do you think learners should be in school, they shouldn't be in school? What's your view on this? I just want to get a feel of that.
Okay, Shamila, when you look at the phasing in, I have to say that it has created a lot of confusion. It has created confusion for parents, for educators, for the senior management, school management teams at school. Because if you recall, according to the Government Gazette 435.0, that was on the 7th of July, it stated that educators would return on the 1st of June 2020, followed by your grade 7 learners and your grade 12 learners on the 8th of June. Then they went on to say on the 6th of June 2020, you would have had your grade R and your 6 and your 11. However, KZN Circular 58 spoke to that, where the grade Rs never returned. Then you had on the 20th of the 7th, which is July, your grade 3s and your 10s. 17th of August, you were supposed to have your 4 and 9. 31st of August, your grade 5s and 8. However, KZN Circular 62 spoke of the closure of schools. Now, remember, that is when the president made an announcement that all schools will be closed from the 27th of July right till the 23rd of August. Now, this created a lot of confusion. Then you had KZN Circular 63 speaking to your grade 12s returning on the 3rd of August. Now, I'm going to talk to the grade 12s returning on the 3rd of August because the Department of Education had a circular stating that only your grade 12s and your grade 12 educators and learners would return. And the majority of the educators from your 10, 11, 9, and 9 and 8 thought that 17th of August, this is where we were supposed to have returned because that was what the president stated. And as well as on the 11th of August, your grade 7s were supposed to have returned. And then your 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are thought 17th of August. Now, remember, I'm taking you back to the challenges schools are facing in terms of shortage of teachers. Now, we are saying that as SMT, we stated that if our grade 7 educators are coming back in your grade 12, what happens to the rest of the educators that we're filling in? So a lot of schools couldn't manage, and therefore most of the teachers had to come back on the 11th. And then some took it for granted that they had to come back on the 17th. So the confusion in terms of the circulars really upset the entire schooling system, right, in terms of the phasing in. Now, if you're looking at Monday 24th, we had in a circular that 66 of 2020 in KZN, where the HOD had now given a revised plan as to how the grades are going to be filtered in. On Friday, we were expecting the PPEs for the remaining of our grades, but to date, schools have not received the mask. So what do we do? Because remember, we have masks for the grade 6s. They can come in on Monday. We have masks for the grade 7s. They can come in. Your grade 12s have, as well as your grade 11. So now, those schools that have their mask would phase in those grades as stipulated in KZN 66. But those that don't have will have to wait for Tuesday because come Monday, we will expect the mask to be there. So there's a lot of confusion in terms of the phasing in of the grades.
I can understand that. And it puts a lot of pressure on the parents as well, because the parents are unsure as to when the kids are going to school. So
Exactly.
What happens now, come Monday, and there's no delivery of the mask? Then what happens?
So during Saturday and Sunday, principals will have to send out communique to state that your grade R, 1, 2, and 3 will not return till the masks are delivered to school. Well, your grade 11s will probably can come in because they have masks. Your grade 6s will return, they have masks. Your 7s and your 12s. So according to how the masks are given, then only will your learners will be able to be phased in. Without those masks, learners cannot come to school.
What was the attendance rate in the past 2 months when learners were attending school or were supposed to attend school?
If you look at Trenance Park Primary, I'm talking to the school that I'm in, we have a roll of 73 grade 7 learners. And out of the 73, we have learners that come in, you have about 20, 30. Then when they were writing the assessments, the grade 7s were supposed to have been writing assessments. The highest rate was 50. So the attendance is not very good. And that's across the schools as well in KZN.
Okay, I know educators were going way above what they're supposed to do, and they were setting assessments for the learners whilst they're at home, just extra activities for them and so forth. Are the learners actually doing that?
not the majority of the learners. Remember, we have learners that don't have access to technology in terms of an iPad, in terms of a computer, in terms of mobile, in terms of data, to go onto the platforms where educators have created WhatsApp groups and online teaching. And in terms of assessments, majority of them are not coming to schools. So they would have to work out a plan as to how these learners are going to be assessed. Come November, you have to have some kind of an assessment for these learners prior to them writing the final exam.
What do you think? I'm trying to get my head around this whole thing now. Learners not attending school for most of the year. They're not doing the extra activities. They're not attending school when they're supposed to, because it's either that the parents are scared to send them to school because they're going to contract the disease. Come November, they need to now do the assessment. They fail. What happens next year?
That's a bit of a challenge, Shamila. That's a bit of a challenge that every school is going to be faced with. So we would have to use a strategy as to probably work around how we're going to get that learner to the next grade. And obviously, there's going to be recapping of the work that was lost. Now, remember, you can't take 2020 work, a whole lot of chunk of 2020 and go into 2021. So there is a gap in terms of the knowledge that was supposed to have been and the content knowledge that's supposed to be taught in 2020. Like I'm saying, that's a challenge that schools are going to be facing with. And a very good question you posed, something for the Department of Education to really look into. How do we work around these learners that have not attended school, that have not given their assignments? So what are we going to do in terms of them coming to that level?
Yes,
in 2021?
Yes, I think those are challenges on its own that the Department of Education's got to look into and figure out some way or the other, because it's a total loss for a lot of learners this year. Some of them, it's not their fault. It's just that the parents don't want them to go to school, and I can understand it's a huge risk, attending school. But at the end of the day, we must also realize that COVID is here to stay. So are you going to keep your kids home for 2 years? No, I don't think so. I don't think any parent wants their kids to lose out 2 years of their schooling or of their life, actually, because that sets them back. So just moving ahead, I know there's been a lot of talks about the nutrition plan that's in schools at the moment. Does any of your learners get that, the meal plans that's offered by government?
Yes, Shamila. You see, the majority of them that come to school come for that meal, right? Most of them come because they don't have food at home. So when they come to school every day, they are fed according to how they needed to be fed. And then food parcels, like there were options as to how these food parcels are going to get to the majority of the learners. What our school did was they had packaged all the food items and had started distributing on a regular basis. So the educator that's in charge of this nutrition would have telephoned all these parents and given them time frames as to when they can come and collect the food hampers so that the learners and their families are sustained over a period of time. So yes, our learners at school are fed on a regular basis. Food hampers have gone out to the majority of them that are not in school, and they have come in and collected their food items. So in terms of nutrition, we are fine with that.
So the nutrition plan, is it for the family or is it just for the learner?
It is for the learner, but what's happening in most of the school is that when you have food, when the learner has his meal and there's extra, most of them take home food to their parents as well in their lunch boxes, because the meals are provided for the learner, and some of them would prefer to take that to their homes where their parents and their siblings don't have meals. So they also are considered for the family as well.
I always think, when I work in the rural areas as well, and I go out there and I see some of these learners getting the nutrition plans that's offered by government, where they queue up and they get their food, they just bring in their lunch boxes and they get their food put in there and they go and eat their meals. I sometimes wonder, what do they do over the weekend? Because, over the weekend they have nothing to eat.
You see, Shamila, like I'm telling you, in terms of the food parcels that we have packed, it's quite a good quantity that would sustain them at the moment now due to COVID. Like, I'm saying it would sustain them over the weekends. And I'm also get what you are trying to say. If children are fed from Monday to Friday, what happens on Saturday and Sunday? Now, that's also a challenge that most of the communities face on a daily basis.
Yes, I can imagine. I can understand that as well. And, there's so much one can do. I know throughout the country, there's a lot of people going out there and giving as much as they can towards these feeding schemes. And I think we need more help, more assistance, and more people to come on board to help provide for these impoverished areas. Deshini, just take me, I know you were a member of SADTU, or you're still a member of SADTU. How do the unions feel about the entire COVID-19, how it's affected schools, how it's affected the educators? Can you just tell us more about that?
Yes, Shamila, I am the education convener of the South African Democratic Teacher Union, the Phoenix branch. And SADTU was very clear from the outset. In being the largest trade union, they have stated very clearly that the lives of the teachers and the lives of the pupils are first and foremost. And they have put a lot of pressure on the Department of Education to ensure that all protocols in terms of COVID-19 was adhered to and maintained. If you've watched the news during this pandemic, and you would have noticed or heard that SADTU is very strong in the plan in terms of how educators needed to come in and whether this was maintained. And they are not against saying, like many would say, that SADTU is there just to pull out the teachers. No, SADTU is hard and fast and said education is paramount and no child should be left behind. That's the stance that we are strong about. But also note that they protect the lives of the educators and the learners. So in terms of SADTU's stance, it's quite clear, like I mentioned.
So that goes with your saying, and I know you're very fond of the quote by Tata Madiba, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world.
Yes. That's what I love. That's what I live by.
So as an educator, what are your fears of getting the virus?
Shamila, every day when you wake up as an educator, you just got to pray daily that you are safe, the lives of the children are safe, the lives of the educators are safe, and just ensure that all protocols are adhered to and maintained, and just ensure that we are safe at all times.
Did you come across any parents, or did any, being the acting deputy principal at Trenance Park, did you actually encounter any sort of conflicts with parents wanting their kids to come to school, or parents contacting you and telling you they're not sending their kids to school? So what sort of experiences did you have so far?
Shamila, we haven't experienced any conflict, because notices were sent out clearly stating if a parent wants to keep his or her child at home, according to the KZN circulars from the Department of Education, it made provision for those learners who are at home. So what educators had to do was compile resource packs so that their child is not left behind, where they were given work on a weekly basis. Obviously, if the work was sent back to school, the 3-day rule applied, whereby no teacher would touch that work until it's sanitized, and only after 3 days, where the work was marked and feedback was given to parents and learners. So even if your child is at home, provision is made for these learners to get resource packs to complete their work. WhatsApp groups were set up by educators and learners to catch up on work. Even those that could afford online teaching, that was done as well. So we haven't had any conflict. In terms of those educators that wanted to do homeschooling, they were given that opportunity to homeschool their children as well. So we haven't experienced any conflict. We have assured our parents and our learners.
Okay, and the resource packs, were they collected from the school, or how was that distributed?
Okay, the resource packs were given at the gates when parents came. It was lodged at the gates so that educators could give those resource packs to the parents, obviously noting that everything was sanitized before it went to and from the school.
Okay, perfect. I'm so glad that you are taking the necessary precautions. I think that's so important. Deshini, your advice to parents out there and educators in terms of the entire COVID saga right now, what would be your best advice?
Okay, my advice to all the parents is to be supportive, be careful, be alert, be kind, and be ready to fight COVID-19.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, I think in a nutshell, that's exactly what should be done. It's Women's Month, your power message out to the women.
My message to all women, like I always say, is be authentic, be original, be you, and own your identity.
I love that. Deshini Pillay, Acting Deputy Principal from Trennans Park School in Durban. Thank you so much for coming through and sharing. I think I've learned so much today about what's going on in schools. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm sure it's going to create such an impact on other people as well, parents and educators out there. I wish you all the best and good luck with the school, with the learners returning to school.
Thank you so much, Shamila. Thank you.